So you forgive my question if it's out of context, because I didn't quite understand the context of that. But what came to my mind was thinking that, are you referring to all politicians or specifically the governments of the day? And you mentioned Africa, so is it because just governments of the day? Because in my view, I think that this phenomenon covers every politician in Africa, in my view. And I've got a very good example in our own country where people were suffering, no food, people were relying on cross-border shopping. There was a lot of corruption. Just to buy food, you must just pay somebody to be able to buy it. That time, 2007, 8, in effect, started longer than earlier than that. And a very prominent politician in our country was like, oh, now that we are going towards elections, we are talking to the neighboring countries. All five of them, he mentioned them by name and said, we are asking them to close the borders because people are surviving through this cross-border trading and buying food. They must close the border so the people can suffer. And I come to appreciate that the government of the day is totally useless. Then they must vote that government out because a hungry man is an angry man. That's a rally speech from one of our prominent opposition political leaders. So that's what the point I wanted to ask from you, what the context was. Sorry about that. Thank you.
The context can be that context that you've placed on it. The food being used. I think, what's her name? When she writes about dead aid, what is she talking about? She's talking about the same thing. So superpowers of the world also use poverty. They create poverty to create dependency. Then they come up as the savers. Now you're dependent on them. The universe itself creates poverty. Yeah? To make you pay attention also, if we want to be spiritual. If you are too much in surplus, indulgence, gluttony, all of those things. So occasionally the universe has to inject these things to call you to order, to value the things that you have. You never value anything until you don't have it or it is threatened. So others will say even the universe does that. Seasons are meant to do that. But in the context of what we are reading, domesticating it to it, taking it away from the global world. Our government, ZANU-PF has used. So in this book, you see that as we were going through 2008 or the years previous to that, yes, the country is suffering something, but aid is coming in, but it becomes politicized to an extent where it is withheld. Not that there is a shortage of it there, but the drip feeding it, the selective giving of it is there to manufacture this consent, to create this desperation. Now, if you add into the mix, what is the difference now with this one that says close the borders? Because this crisis requires us to pay attention, to not flee, because there are two responses for a human being: fight or flight. They have a place in dealing with trauma. The natural reaction to a human being is not to live in pain. It seeks pleasure. I don't mean kuenda kumabawa kujamba maspika. The body seeks to not be in distress. It must compensate for it. So, flight, teaser, in pleasure and say, I need to escape this. So they fly, they go on flight. But the more people flee a situation, it means there's very little capacity to deal with the problem. So yes, as a method politically, We can't just be on flight mode. Now, in this very book, you missed another important thing. We are talking about xenophobia now. The South African xenophobia. Did you see in that book that they mentioned that in that period, we have experienced another xenophobic attack from South Africa that killed 60, predominantly Zimbabwean. And what had heightened the xenophobic attacks? The host community being burdened and scapegoat you as the problem that they are facing. And they retaliate xenophobically. But now when we see xenophobia today, we disassociate it from xenophobic attacks of the past that were influenced by this exact same situation that is happening. It is new to us now. How could they? Makwerekwere what? No. Even that one, Yama 2007, was not the first xenophobic attack. They've done a xenophobic attack previous to that. As they become squeezed, somebody has to be squeezed out. So so when Morgan Twangira, I think that's who you are mentioning, who says close the borders. Now he's saying close the borders so that we are not in flight mode. We can begin our fight mode. It's still a method of survival. But when it is used by governments as a retention of power, that's a different thing altogether. You are killing people so that iwewe wowana. But if you're saying close borders so people can fight what is oppressing them, to remove it so that vawane evil. Those are two different things. But yes, poverty, desperation. But what is this desperation meant to do? You can create your own desperation. That's why it's called a struggle. A struggle creates you have to make something uncomfortable of yourself so that you can pursue a more sustainable comfort later. It's a struggle. So sometimes we have to give to the struggle, deplete your own funds, go without. Here we discuss all the time. People in the opposition have faced periods of taking from their children to give to political parties that they didn't birth, so that they can birth a freedom that brings more to their children. Time that is taken away from families so that you can buy extra time somewhere else. So sacrifice. During the Liberation War, people would go without and be told, Musaende, to buy from storekeeper Ningi, who's charging you very much. There's no food. But if you continue to buy from him, he just extends the price all the time, which makes even the people who could have afforded the food yesterday to not afford.